Agriculture has a crucial role in the plans of the present administration. It's not just a policy pillar. It's a strategic tool for economic transformation, food security, and job creation. Now, recently, President Bola Tinubu spoke of his administration's plan to make agriculture sexy and attractive for Nigerian youths. Today, we speak with the head of one of the agencies of the federal government tasked with turning the aspirations of the president into practical and concrete achievements. My discussion is with the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of the National Agricultural Land Development Authority, Engineer Colinus Adebayo. Good day, sir, and welcome to Newsnight.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us in your office.
Most welcome, sir.
Now, I'd like to start from your agency. What is the core mission of NALDA?
All right. Start from the full meaning.
Okay.
NALDA stands for the National Agricultural Land Development Authority. From its name, you can see land development is very prominent. Our core mandate is to develop agricultural land across the country, also to hold land on behalf of federal government for agricultural purposes, to make it available for large-scale agriculture, okay, and also to support smallholder farmers to scale up. So one of our main tasks is to increase food production, okay, and also encourage commercial size agriculture. So what you're looking at, scaling up smallholder to medium scale farmers, scaling up medium scale to large scale. So that is where we play as NALDA.
Okay. What's your strategy to get this all done?
Well,
do you have a strategic plan?
Yes. I resumed about a year ago. I resumed in August 2024. Mr. President appointed us in July, and since then we went to work. We drew up a strategic plan for NALDA. We have a 10-year strategic plan which shows the short term, which is the first 3 years, first 2 years essentially, 2.5. Then the midterm plan, which is 5 years, and the 10-year long-term plan. And what we've tried to do with this is to draw a direction for the authority, okay, so that government is a continuum.
Yes.
You want to be able to set a tone that if tomorrow anyone is here in NALDA, there's a footprint, there's a roadmap to follow, and that we've achieved. We've completed that, and it shows all the key areas of investment and the direction for the agents, for the authority. So we have a 10-year strategic plan, which is available. We're going to make it available on the website, but it's available to all stakeholders because we did a stakeholder summit before we concluded the strategic plan, where we called all stakeholders from the 36 states, the state commissioners of agriculture, the land land geographical information system offices of different states, commissioners for land, private sector stakeholders in the agricultural sector. Of course, the people at the federal level, the government agencies, the Federal Ministry of Agri, and we're all there, and we presented this plan and actually made it available to people so that they can criticize and make comments, and that helped us arrive at the final document that we have today as a 10-year strategic plan for NALDA.
Okay. So I'm assuming it has a short term. You've talked of the medium term, you've talked of the long term.
Yes.
What are the immediates you are trying to look at?
Well, immediately, we've seen that we have shortage of well-prepared standard agricultural land. Okay. It's because the agency has not been able to fully optimize itself. So what we're trying to do now is to improve the rate at which we prepare land properly. Okay. You see a situation where people have because most of the Nigerian farmers are smallholder farmers. Yeah. Some of them use crude implements.
Most of them, sir.
Most
Because
of them.
if you go, even right now, you still see people using
the holes. And at the end of the day, we are trying to migrate our farmers from that small to that mid, to be able to feed not just Nigeria, and feed Africa and feed the world. Nigeria is blessed. We have states that can feed the entire Africa. In terms of landmass, you look at a state like Niger, look at a state like Taraba, look at, those are states that have the land available to actually do. You look at Jigawa, you look at, there's so many states that even just concentrating on one state, we are able to achieve so much to feed. So for us, I think the immediate thing is to actually prepare land properly and get those lands in the hands of our experienced farmers. And then also work on getting that land fully utilized. And when we talk about full utilization, we're talking about all year-round farming, irrigation, or whatnot. That is what we need to do now. Then we now have to concentrate on specific crops. And our concentration will be in stages. First, we have to meet what we need. Food security is national security. So we have to meet food security first. After food security, you now talk about things like import substitution. How do we block what we're importing? How do we substitute that to improve production? Then next, you now talk about export promotion. How do we improve the tonnage of cocoa, tonnage of cashew, tonnage of oil, oil palm, tonnage of cassava that we're producing to be able to export and earn that much needed foreign exchange. And in terms of export promotion, we're at a very interesting time in the world right now, where you see a lot of trade wars going on left, right, and center. How do we, as a country, position ourselves to benefit from this? This country buys soybeans from this country because of the trade tariff. You cannot bring in the soybean to that other country, but they are looking for alternative. As a nation, are we prepared to fill that gap? And fit? So those are all the things that, luckily, the strategic plan has addressed that. So that is what we have been able to.
Okay, I'm wondering now, how do you get across to the farmers? Very nice and I feel needed intervention that your agency does, but how does a farmer in a rural area get across or reach out to you for assistance?
We have state offices in the 36 states of the country. We have regional offices that control the state offices. Well, part of what we're doing, part of what we have in our strategic plan is the restructuring of the agent authority. So we're restructuring the directorates. Each of the states is supposed to have a directorate. We're restructuring the number of departments and putting things in proper places to make sure that we are accessible to every Nigerian farmer. We're accessible to the people that actually really need it. And you see, one of the other interesting projects, we've not started talking about our project, but we are positioning, there's a specific project, we call it the National Agricultural Land Bank that we're planning to develop. That would address the issue of geolocation for the farmers, clusterization, proper land documentation, who owns what, where is what, soil mapping, soil testing, those are the critical things that we need to address. Because you look at Nigeria, you are getting a yield on cassava of about, the yield is so low, we are looking at an national average of 12 tons per hectare, 20, some places are achieving 20 tons. Outside the country, in China, they are talking about 50 tons per hectare. So, so we are so far off from where we want. And what are the things? It's just because we are not doing what we need to do. You see people applying generic fertilizers of soils without even testing what that soil lacks or what it needs. So all these are things that we want to put in place. That's why we have some project like the National Renewable Hope Land and Farm Estates, where what government is supposed to do is to help the lifting of the farmers. We're supposed to do the heavy lifting. So it's easy for people to go into this business and succeed. And I lay emphasis on the fact that I called it a business. Agriculture is a business, and it's a serious one at that, and must be treated as such.
Well, I know you've spoken, and it seems there's a phrase you use a lot, the middle class. You're trying to build a middle class of farmers. What does that mean? What are you actually trying to do with that?
I'm not an economist, but one of the critical areas that we're missing in this country and in the economy in Nigeria now is the absence of that critical middle class. Growing up when we were much younger, I'm not that old anyways, but we saw people being comfortable within where they live and living well. I grew up, in Kwara. People were living in the Lorraine. All the families were there. People were able to go to school, afford basic things. That middle class was there. But now we see that everyone is leaving those towns and cities and moving to the bigger ones. So you see a lot of rural-urban drift. So, we used to have what we call the mid-centers, because those towns were mid-centers. So somebody from my community in Okeonigbi would naturally not want to move to Lagos directly. His ambition then would be to move to Ilorin.
Yes.
But that middle place doesn't exist anymore. They want to move straight from Okeonigbi and Japa.
Not even to Lagos.
So Lagos is secondary. But we need to create that middle class, and what creates that middle class is production. NALDA wants to drive production. And
true farmers.
True farming. When you farm, you have the required raw material to process. And when we have those raw materials available in these areas, we can have cottage facilities in those places. We can even have major industries in those places to process these materials. And that creates the jobs we need where they are. People can live in those cities and towns and communities and actually earn decent living. That is the middle class that we would create. And one of the strategies we have is Nigerian farmers, everywhere you hear a farming program, you hear 1 hectare per farmer, 1 acre per farmer. We in NALDA, we don't believe in that. Now, our strategy is to ensure that experienced farmers are migrated from 1 hectare to 5 hectares minimum. If you do your maths, a well-managed 5 hectare can give very decent income. Very, very decent income. Even using the output, current national average yield, and using the price right now for each of these commodities. So using that and calculating backwards, 5 hectares per farmer. I think if we can do that and have a lot of people in the programs, we're going to generally create a new trend of the middle class that was missing. And these communities where they operate will be built into more modern. So that's why you now see people being comfortable where they are, because infrastructure is coming there, they are earning decent income, they are not under any pressure. It's like you go to Iowa, if you meet a farmer in Iowa, he doesn't want to go to Washington, D.C., he doesn't want to go to New York. He is a farmer in Iowa. So, yes, and it's fine there. You need to create that comfort and that national self-awareness for our people to be able to be comfortable and say, look, I'm in Iwate, and I'm a farmer, I'm a cocoa farmer, I'm a maize farmer, and I'm comfortable being here in Iwate.
Okay, but I want to find out from you, a lot of people will be like, that image should be more for our youth, because they are the ones we really need to catch hold of.
Yes.
Just as you said, there's this move out, the Japa syndrome. But apart from that, a lot of people don't really see agri. They feel it's just hard work and little to come in. Yeah. What are you doing about the youth?
Well, I'm a youth myself, thanks to His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He has invested in a lot of young people, and throughout his career, you would see, even as Lagos State Governor, he invested in young people. Now, as a President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, there are so many Director Generals, heads of agencies, chief executives that are even under 40. The last time I counted, over 40 people are under the age of 45, even more. So that is youth inclusion. But can the president appoint every youth in the country? No. Can the government agencies employ all the youth in the country? No. The easiest way to access the Nigerian youth and engage them, there are two areas. It's agriculture and sports. And this is why we believe that we can even have a synergy. That's why we are bringing in these farm estate programs. If we don't clusterize our farmers, if we don't give them the needed support, we're not going to have anybody show interest in agriculture. Nobody wants to go through school and finish in the university and come and work with hoe and cutlass. And that is why you see Mr. President has launched the mechanization program, National Mechanization Program, the Renewed Hope Mechanization Program. Mm-hmm. These programs are supposed to help the youth. They are the ones that can use this equipment. They are the ones that can easily be trained to operate this machinery. They are the ones that can benefit from it. For example, you have a graduate that's looking for a job in a city. He gets a job in a, let's say, an institution, and is getting paid how much a month. The percentage of that income he uses for house rent, transportation is large. So at the end of the day, he doesn't even have a lot to save. But if that same youth is trained and is put in a program, in our farm estate program, and is given 5 hectares, I can tell you easily that he can easily earn 12 million annually within that 5 hectares. Easily. No, I'm just being conservative. It can be more.
With the right support.
With that support, and after all deductions, he can easily achieve that 12 million. Now, would you, if you call an average youth, how many people would not jump at the opportunity to earn 12 million a year? That's approximately $1 million a month. That is decent progress. Yes. So if we can engage as many in that, then those young people get comfortable. You see a young man, he graduates from the university. He probably is planning to get married. He has somebody he met in school. She's a nurse or she's a doctor, and she's a teacher. You see this, I'm trying to explain to you how this keys into building sustainable communities. When you have someone like that settled, he's probably going to be married to an educated person in those rural communities. Those educated people are now the pool of talents we need to run our primary health centers, that the talents we need to run our schools in those areas. So generally, you see the effect, not only on agriculture, but the effect in the quality of education you have, because their kids are going to those schools. They want to ensure that they are well brought up and well trained. Their kids are going to use the hospital. They want to make sure that they are well treated. So that local development, rural development is vital to helping our health sector, our education sector, and our economy in general. So the ripple effect of this youth engagement in the local level is not only about food security and food provision. It's about building sustainable communities that we can be proud of as Nigerians.
Okay, well, it sounds laudable. But what's your response to critics who feel that a lot of times this sort of government-led agricultural projects don't actually show progress at the end of the day? They don't get to lift as we want them to.
Okay. I can understand the reservation. I would not say criticism, because it's not much of criticism, but more of reservation. We have designed this project in such a way that it is only to entice and show people there's private sector components to it. Already we have started seeing interest from different players in the private sector. Government is only showing this as a proof that, look, this model can work. Okay. And it also shows how the private sector can come in and take over. Because government is not in the business of business. government is in the business of facilitation and conducive environment for business to thrive. True. If we do the heavy lifting, then the private sector runs it. When you look at all these mechanization programs, let me give you an example. You say the tractors are purchased. If those tractors end up in the hands of mechanization companies in different local governments, are we not creating jobs? Are we not creating new avenues in the sector? I'll give you an example. When there was the telecommunication revolution under President Obasanjo, yes. Of course, and you see how the sector transformed the Nigerian economy. Now, the ripple effect, what did you see then? You saw a lot of companies coming up to do telecom servicing. Some were doing base station maintenance, some were doing last mile provision, some were doing fiber optics cable installation. Yes. That is the sort of effect with the programs President Tinubu is doing in this government now and working through NALDA and other stakeholders. That is the sort of ripple effect you see from this. Because now, mechanization companies will come up. Irrigation service providers will come up. Do you think it is the business of the government to be buying irrigation installation systems? If the right setup is in place, it is the private sector that would lead that effort. And that is what we are trying to do, to put the right framework in place for the private sector to see the opportunity to run it. If they see the opportunity to serve 1,000 farmers in one place, you and I know that people will bring their money and say, look, I know I'll get my money out because there's a concentration of people here that I can serve and they can pay for my services.
I think the worry for some people is that in Nigeria, sometimes when you say something is government-led or yes. government-driven, if politics doesn't enter it, it gets merged with a lot of things and doesn't actualize. So that's the challenge or the conception. Yes. But let me still take you up on this issue. Now, it appears over time there have been some abandoned projects. Yeah. Now that projects in some states. What are you doing to recover those or to see how you can hold those that should have done that, the contractors responsible?
Okay, now, I wouldn't say we have abandoned projects from contractors' end. Okay. The issue, we don't have contractors abandoning projects in NALDA. Okay. I came in and I did not inherit abandoned projects by contractors. Okay. What happened, what we have here, the scenario we have here is a situation where you have NALDA assets that are not being fully optimized or utilized. By NALDA and Nigerians. Okay. So we have old NALDA plantations. You know, NALDA existed since 1992. So you have a lot of plantations or farm estates that were set up in 93, 94, up to 96. That because there was a break in NALDA operation, those operations are not properly being managed. So what we are doing in NALDA right now is we've set up a recovery panel, a committee. Okay. And they've broken them into geopolitical zones. And we're trying to establish that connection with those communities that have those NALDA lands in the senatorial districts to recover them, just because the necessary support that we should have been given to the farmers are not being given. I give you, for example, we have a plantation in Odogbolu in Ogun State. Fantastic location, oil palm trees, almost 3,000 hectares. And NALDA has not been there for a while. But now we're going in and saying, look, let's support the farmers. What is the existing agreement? What can we do to help you? Can we give you a confirmed direct buyer that would offtake all these commodities and give you your money in real value? Rather than, you see, a lot of us say, oh, we want to buy this little machine to process the palm, but the extraction percentage from those machines is almost like we're wasting the raw material. So we need to actually plan proper link between industrialization and our production, where we have defined industries and factories coming directly to these people to take some of these commodities for processing. We have a lot of factories that have opened up that don't have feedstock. And we have a lot of feedstock in the field that don't get to the factories. So now that needs to bridge that, take over some of these our old plantations, ensure that people offtake, ensure we maintain them properly, ensure that they are well cultured and cut through, and ensure that the farmers are getting what they are supposed to get in terms of sale value for their commodities.
We'll take a short break here and continue our assessment when we return. Thank you, and welcome back from that short break. We were talking about the community and NALDA relationship, especially post-harvest. Can you please continue on that line of thought?
The model has been designed in such a way that when the harvest is done,
yes,
and the off-taker, which acts as a cluster manager for that community-based farm, the cluster manager is the off-taker. So he is concerned about the quality of his offtake. So he generally helps the farmers in terms of agronomy and extension services. So to make sure that the farm is well maintained and he can collect and buy off at the end. Now, when the percentage sharing formula is, you take 60 for the farmer, 30 for NALDA, and 10 to a community development pot. So that 10% of that harvest that is going to the community development pot is meant to be for infrastructural development within that community that gave up their land. Okay. So when you give your land, you should get something in, although NALDA is not paying for the land, but that land is generating revenue and your community takes something to use to do infrastructural development. Well, so there would be a committee at that level where you have the local government chairman, the community development association president or chairperson, and representative of NALDA, representative of Ministry of Agric, representative of Ministry of Works in the state, of course, so that there's a committee and the representative from the community and the palace or whatever, so that then they sit and determine these funds. This is the project. Is it solar street light? Is it road? Is it erosion control?
So this even helps build
communities and develop communities.
Yes. But I would like to ask you now, this works fine at a community level where the community is in unison. But how does a farmer has his own small plot? Is it that he's excluded from land development? Because from what you're saying now, you first need someone, you need a community that donates a land.
I'll explain.
Okay.
You see, it is, since the core mandate is encouraging commercial scale agriculture.
Okay. Okay.
So we don't want to keep those farmers in small scale. Okay. Even if you have your small farm outside, when you come into this program and you are giving 5 hectares, you are not a small farmer anymore. Even though you are not, I wouldn't call you a large-scale farmer, but you are on the road to being large. It's difficult logistics-wise to service every small farmer in different places. The logistics of me moving a bulldozer to a site to come and clear and moving the tractor. And if the smallholder is only farming on 1 acre or one, it doesn't make any commercial or logical sense to do that. That's why we believe in clusterization. And to clusterize them, you need the community, or the local government, or the state government to come in and say, okay, this land, or even private individuals that own large expanse of land and say, okay, now that we need to develop this land, and in turn, we have an in-grower system where they allocate those plots to farmers and they act as anchor to collect the output. Okay. That helps us clusterize them. You know, the advantage of clusterization is easier to provide services.
So how are we doing with that tractor policy?
Yes,
because Nigeria is a large country. Yes. Even the day we heard about that 2,000 tractors, we were like...
It is only the first phase.
Okay.
We have the John Deere program that is domiciled under the NADF, Agri Development Fund. We have the GIP project with the Brazilian government, which was signed when the president was in Brazil last year. So these programs all bring in equipment, but of course, Rome wasn't built in a day. We are not going to wait for the entire 10,000 before we start making moves. Hunger doesn't wait for equipment. So development should not be stalled because we are waiting for the full batch. As the equipments are coming, we will distribute to priority areas that need them. We have our research institutions, for example, universities of agriculture, and for example, they need this equipment to also develop further. And you have agencies like NALDA, you have large-scale farms. For example, there's a farm in Ekiti State that NALDA is partnering with. Adebayo farms is considerably the largest cassava farm I've seen. It's probably the largest in Africa. And they have about 15,000 hectares of land in partnership with the Ekiti State government. And they have cultivated about 3,000 hectares of cassava in one place. And NALDA sees serious partners like that. So where we come in is NALDA goes in there and say, look, we are going to clear 5,000 hectares for you in the next 2 years or whatever time period, so that you take your focus or resources off land clearing and you can focus on production of the cassava, so that then your processing line can come in and you can now look at processing sorbitol, cassava flour, cassava starch. Because if you look at cassava, for example, I'm sorry to digress, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava. But Indonesia and those other countries are playing a bigger role in terms of finished products of cassava. So Nigeria is producing a lot of cassava, but we're eating it as gari and starch. But we can do much more with it because we are not even a major player in the international trade of cassava produce. And we have biofuels that we can achieve from cassava. We have chemicals that are used in fire. You have sweeteners that we use. You have a cassava starch that we use industrial use. It's such a great. Nigeria still imports starch. The factories in Nigeria import starch, and Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava. Isn't that interesting? So some of these programs are channeled to ensure that we produce what we need industrially in a cluster, so that we can leave the average farmer behind his house in any state, in Benue, in Taraba, to cultivate the little cassava we would eat. But these special programs should make sure that we are industrialized enough to play a major role in international trade and business.
Okay. A lot of times when we talk about agric, I think the fear for most people is that we're still battling the issue of herder-farmer. And so no matter how laudable or how beautiful the plan or the picture is painted, one worries. In your opinion, how can we address this so that even for those who would have loved to, it doesn't become a fear? You're talking about getting hectares, that will most probably be in the outskirts of wherever. They won't be close to it. And the further you get away, the more you worry about security.
Okay. Very good question, but the president has taken a lot of steps in this direction.
Okay.
Both from the security angle and from within the sector. Being in NALDA gives us an opportunity to work closely with both the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Livestock Development. Mr. President, in his wisdom, has created a new ministry to tackle the issue of herder and farmer crisis, and that is the Ministry of Livestock Development. And some of the programs they are running in that place, they are working together with NALDA to be able to achieve this. The primary thing is grazing, feed and fodder development. And NALDA is working. You see, you have all these grazing reserves around the country. For example, we're working on a project in Wase, in Plateau State. We're working on a project in Kwara State. And these are projects that we're developing to create grazing reserves that are well irrigated. Now, I don't know about you, but nobody deliberately likes to suffer. You can tell me that a herdman is in his tradition to move around That is because back then the technology to make sure that they have what is green is not available. Now that the technology is there, nobody wants to walk 10 miles, 100 miles across the country, across the region. If you can provide where they can stay and produce and feed their cattle, they would stay there. So what the government is saying is, let us provide these places where they can feed their cattle and milk their cattle and do whatever they need to do and live properly. They can also train their kids. The kids can have good schools. They can have access to healthcare. Then if you offer that, they will take it. It's just like saying, I'm a Yoruba man, as a proud Igbo man, that I have to pound the yam in this thing. There are machines that you can put the yam in that will make it pound yam, and the yam will be fluffier than the one you pounded. So I'm sure some Ekiti people will argue with me on that. But
yes, some prefer it with the label. But they feel it's sweeter that way.
That's right.
Now, how do you collaborate with states? Because the states own the land.
Yes. The governors have been very supportive. And when I came in, I inherited a lot of land assets that has been given to NALDA as donations from not only communities, also local governments and state governments. And the governors realized this. We have, for example, I give you an example, Ekiti State. NALDA had an old farm. The governor made sure that our land was well protected, gave us 5,000 hectares for the Renewed Hope Mega Farm project. And immediately we started the project, the governor called me and said, now that you've gone far, I've seen that you've cleared 1,200 in less than 5 months, or 4 months. Yeah. I'm going to give you an additional 5,000 to make it 10, because you people are serious. And because the truth is, this project don't belong, it's not the federal government that is taking the land away.
Still,
these lands are being utilized by citizens of that state, people from those communities. We are only assisting. But for us to be able to provide infrastructure to invest so much, there must be some sort of control. And that is the only reason why we're asking for those lands to be donated. We have no right to sell them. NALDA does not sell land. When we take control of those lands, we only make it accessible, develop it, and we need some control, because when there's no control, there's no law, there's no order. And when there's no ownership or control, who is going to be in charge?
So you're working with the states?
We are working closely with the state governments. In fact, the chairman of the Governors Forum, which happens to be the governor of my state, called me and said, look, these are programs that we need to emphasize on, and that we have our support, and that they will be working with us to ensure that we have all what we need to make this thing available for our people, because they also need to complement our efforts with their own state-owned agricultural development authorities.
Okay, so let me, one of the things I find fascinating, you've spent a little over a year, or almost a year. Almost a year. Transition-wise, coming into the federal agency, what would you say has been your greatest challenge?
Funding, I would say. People out there believe when government has the money, and we tend to forget how big this country is. I traveled for the annual meetings of the African Development Bank, and they were talking about how Côte d'Ivoire is doing this in cocoa, Côte d'Ivoire is doing this, and I asked them, because what is the population of Côte d'Ivoire? We have a country that is so huge, blessed with resources, blessed with people, and blessed with so many ideas, with so little to service it. And that is why we've decided in order to look inwards and look for ways to support the government to generate enough of our own revenue, so that we have a sustainable model where we can reach out to as many people as possible. Because, sir, it's difficult. You cannot kill a horse. The government needs to service agriculture. The government needs to service housing. The government needs to service infrastructure. We are looking at the beautiful roads being built all the way to Sokoto from Badagry. We are looking at the wonderful ones being built all the way to Lagos from Calabar. Those things have to be done, because our produce from our farms have to get to the port.
So if you had your way, you would have loved to see more funds?
Yes, I would love to see more funds. I would love to have development partners support. I would love to see external funds. And we're looking inwards, like I say. Some of our farm estates can earn carbon credits. Those are critical areas where we're seeing where we can use what we have to get what we don't have, which is resources.
Are you looking at your laws
Yes.
to be able to get that?
Our laws now permit us to do
Okay. To be able to earn.
Yes.
Okay. You can get grants, or you can.
You can get grants.
Okay.
I can borrow. I can take loans. Okay. I can commercialize my services.
And you've started exploring.
Yes, because some of our tractors are being commercialized. Just that we give them at a very, very subsidized rate, because the target is not for profit. The target is for sustainability. I don't have to go to government to come and maintain those tractors. I don't have to go back to replace them. That's the idea. Not that I want to declare huge profit. I just want to be able to build a sustainable model where I can run on my own without always running back to the government.
To government. Now, one thing I always appreciate is that perspective is a powerful thing. Depending on where you stand, you may see things that people may not be able to see. Now, from your vantage point, if there was one policy that you could change or that you could alter to transform Nigeria's agricultural economy, what would that be?
That's a trick question. I would say Land Use Act.
Okay.
And this is something we're working on, but I wouldn't want to delve too deep into that. Okay. But Land Use Act is important. But above all, apart from the Land Use Act, the land development policy, which we have been talking about, is a very critical part of it. Mr. President is very passionate about this. And that is why you can see there's a lot of effort in terms of mechanization. It all draws you down to a big picture that he has about land development. Setting up, we have plans to set up farm estates in all the 36 states, including FCT.
Farm estates?
Yes. So we have what we call the Renewed Hope Mega Farm Estate Project in NALDA. Those farm estates are supposed to be like, how would I call it? You know, if you don't understand your past, you cannot know your future. We've had models that have worked in the past when we had regional government. I would say, for example, in the Western region, which I know very well, even though I'm not from the Western region, but I studied that model properly. I'm from the Northern region. Well, I'm a Yoruba man in the North.
Let's not go into
so when you look at the Western region, for example,
yes.
Obafemi had what we call the farm estates.
Okay.
And those estates, you know, we had the Fashola, you had this and that in different areas. They produced what we needed. You had those estates that produced the Great Pyramid in the North. Also, those were models that worked. But all of a sudden, as a country, we changed our strategy and we decided that we wanted to do subsidized agriculture by buying inputs and giving inputs to farmers at discounted rates and giving farmers input for free. Well, I'm not saying support is not good, but our agricultural policy and strategy should not be based on giving out free hands. There are other ways to subsidize the farmers. There are other ways to support them. But what we need to do is to prepare and develop land for people to have interest. So when we do that, those mega farm estates are large expanses of land. I give you two examples. We have 3 pilot projects: Bauchi State, Ekiti State, and Kwara State. In Irele Ekiti, we have 5,000 hectares. We've cleared about 1,002. We have prepared the land. Now we are building hostels for farmers. We are building the administrative block. We are building a warehouse. We are building the gate and police station in partnership with Police Trust Fund. So we're providing facility for agro rangers and even the DSS. Now, what does this do? This farm in Ekiti, for example, you asked me earlier on about the farmer header issue. We are trenching the farm round, 4 feet by 4 feet. Because in some cases, I've been a farmer, the header will tell you, oh, I didn't know I had entered your farm. By putting the trench, any cattle that goes into it falls into that trench. And you know that there's a boundary, clearly. These trenches can later be used as distribution channels for irrigation down the road.
You have 3 of this pilot.
Pilot, yes. In Kwara, in Ora, in Kwara, Ifelodo local government, we have in Irele, Kiti. And the reason why we're in Irele, there's a beautiful cluster being set up by the state government there, where you have Adebayo with 15,000, now that is about 5 to 10,000. Promise Point Industries that is producing cassava flour also down the road. So now that is supporting Promise Point to produce 1,000 hectares. Now that is developing 5,000 hectares here. Now that is working with Adebayo on 5,000 there. So we are producing enough cassava to be able to service it output of finished produce. Adebayo is building their own factory within their facility. Promise Point already has a factory. How did we get into an agreement with Promise Point? The factory was about to shut down. There was no feedstock. And NALDA came to say, look, for you to be able to service your loans with Bank of Industry, let us help you with production so that you have feedstock to produce and sell, then you service your loans. So you see those farm estates are being set up in such a way that you have youths. So we are going to work with the state government. We are going to, their youth farming program. Bring your beneficiaries, bring your people into this program. Let them have hostels to sleep. Because these communities, when you talk about 5,000 hectares of land, working on that land alone is not easy. So not to talk about transporting yourself from your community to come there every time. You must provide where they rest, and you must provide security for them while they are there. And the reason we're having this admin block and whatever is because NALDA needs to be there to have an office there. You can reach. A farmer will just walk from his farm to the admin block. Bank of Agri can be there. NADF can be there. NESAL.
So this is sort of a joint.
NESAL can be there. NAIC, Agri Insurance, can be there. So when you have a one-stop shop where you can walk in there, even the agro dealers can run the warehouse where it's easy for the farmer to know that this is the warehouse. This is where I'll collect my inputs from, and this is where I will return my output to. That helps us with monitoring where inputs are going to. Inputs should not be diverted to neighboring countries by farmers or traders. You know that you have taken this input, this quantity is going to this agro dealer here. This is where they collect from. We can monitor the farmers properly. Extension workers are in the admin block, working, going to check best practices, this. So when you have them in that place, we have built a beautiful community where even within that place, they have sports centers, they have football pitch.
It's a whole community.
Even down the road, there might now be opportunities for them to now build their homes even there, and then you start having schools. But immediately, of course, there will be health center there. There will even be recreational places for them to have dramas and plays in the evening, because those are things that build our cultural heritage back. So those mega farm estates are model settlements being built by this government to show that agriculture can once again be sexy. Let me borrow from the words of Mr. President.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of, you speak with a lot of passion, and there's a lot of, what do you call it, the lovely picture that you paint.
Thank you.
But what would you like to be your legacy in as few minutes as you can? What would you like to leave the agency with for Nigerian agri sector?
First, to build an agency that is strong with or without me. Two, to be a part of a generation that would return Nigeria to its old glory by alleviating poverty, creating jobs, building the middle class we need, and providing the food we need. Zero hunger is a target. Zero hunger is what we can achieve. And so being part of that is a great opportunity, and it's one of the legacies I want to know that, yes, you've left a mark, you've done your part. I believe that these farm estate policies that we're doing, the same policy we are doing in farm estate is what we're doing in aquaculture, is what we're doing in greenhouses for vegetables. The same model, and it can transform the entire economy. That alone for me, if I achieve that, I'm a fulfilled one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time. Very grateful.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you, sir.
One thing that is clear and undeniable is Nigeria's potential in the agriculture sector. It contributes significantly to the country's economy and can do much more. I'd like to hear your reactions to the steps being taken to transform the sector. You can send your views through our social media handles and the email address on the screen. And if you want to watch this episode again or any of our past episodes, go to our YouTube channel and take your pick. Let me take one comment from our last episode. This comment is coming from Kenebe Olise. And he says, democracy is about the people. If the people of the Republic want beavers and IREV to be part of the electoral law, it should be done. This shouldn't be something that should be debated about. It's already part of INEC guidelines. This guideline should be enforceable by law. Until then, Nigerians will not trust whatever comes out of INEC. 2023 was an eye-opener. Thanks, Kenebe, for writing in, and we look forward to your comments. Well, this is where we end the program today. Bye.